And I have the incredible honor of introducing none other than Paul Whitley. Now, Paul, of course, is one of our hero leaders here in the C Suite Network. He is also the chair of the C Suite Support Council. And I don't know, dear friend to so many of us. His heart and passion for serving is tremendous. And this is why we have such incredible conversations here in the C Suite Support Council. So, Paul, of course, is a fractional CFO, and his mission is to see that growth and deliver that with the ability to understand the importance that it has for the person that he's working with or the company that he's working with. And so, Paul, I am always so honored to be able to host with you and introduce you for our council meetings. I know we have tremendous content today, and so I can't wait. I'm going to hand things over.
Well, I appreciate that, Tricia. Thank you for joining us today and co-hosting with me. Today we have the opportunity of talking to a young man that has served his country and been part of the backbone of what we are to be as strong as we are as a company. And I was pleased to see that we're almost approaching 5,000 people that have made impressions on the announcement that we're going to be here. So that obviously shows there's interest in what we have to say today. And hopefully through LinkedIn, Facebook, and the other platforms, we'll have a nice audience out there, even though we can't see them from here. That's just fine. So today we're talking to a character named Zack Knight. Now, Zack, you went from Metro Atlanta SWAT to an Army infantry officer in Afghanistan with the Green Berets. Most CEOs build one career. You built three. What does an ARC do to you to lead today?
And thanks so much for y'all having me. It's an interesting piece, the military space, the police space, trying to recreate that here in the civilian world, right? And how do we actually operate with a team and function together well? I think that's kind of the biggest piece, is trying to learn, is not just lead in the civilian space, but learn from the civilian space as we try to dive more into it.
Absolutely. And I'm going to ask you, if you would, to go ahead and turn up your mic. It's a little soft. We lost a little volume when we got started there, but I appreciate what you're saying there. Now, and from what I understand, in 2021, an advancement course found nerve damage in your left arm and you were medically retired. Walk us through that moment, what those first 12 months out of the uniform looked like for you.
Yeah. So for me, the big piece was it wasn't a quick exit out of the military. It was actually about 2 years in the middle of recovery. So my transition was kind of drawn out. We had the surgery, it went very poorly. And then about 2 years later, after recovery and out processing, so in that 2 years was a little bit unique, where it was kind of double duty, if you will, where we were both, I was both trying to transition, still do all the medical requirements of things, and then figure out where my place was in the civilian space. And I really dove into entrepreneurship being the big focus for me, and where I could actually stretch my legs a little bit more.
She almost became one of the 22 veterans a day that forfeit their life. They don't know where to go. They don't know how to deal with the future, don't know how to deal with their family. And why don't you share with that? What would you say that somebody had said at you at month 3?
Man, I think the hardest part for me was, and I think it's become so popularized, the veteran suicide statistics are all over the place. Everybody knows the 22 a day. For me, I think it was one of those, a lot of times it almost becomes an easier thought, if that makes sense. And a lot of the veterans we serve now, that's kind of the concept. It'd be easier for everybody else if. And I think that's a lot of what we want to combat, is changing that mindset. It wouldn't be easier if. Understanding the value that a veteran brings into it. For me, when I was in that dark spot, it was the week before the surgery. I had that really bad feeling about it. And the week before, 2 weeks before the surgery, I was offered 8 figures for one of the companies I had started while I was still active duty yet. So on paper, massively successful. But the week before the surgery, I was at the end of a bottle of bourbon and on the end of the dock with a pistol ready to go. And to me, at that time, it's like, it'll be easier for my family if. And I think that's the biggest thing we're really fighting, is it's not easier for anybody. And the reality is we just have to figure out what is going to get you to wake up tomorrow.
Well, having the opportunity to work with different veterans groups at the present, including one with Blair Thomas, who's on this podcast with us, you know, every veteran nonprofit talks about the 22 number. Most of them work upstream of it. What is the existing transition system, in your words, designed for the wrong veteran? What do we need to do?
I think the biggest thing, and this is where we've really structured advancing the line, the biggest thing is not just the transition point. A lot of organizations really focus on 6 months before getting out, or the 6 months right when you get out, and that's that 12-month stretch is kind of the quote unquote transition period. But a lot of the veterans that we serve, the ones we focus on, are the veterans that have been out for 2, 5, 10 years, because I think that's where you really start seeing the friction point. Is the transition happens at different stages for people. But if you've been out of the uniform for a few years, people kind of forget that you're a veteran, or forget that that's also a focus of what our community should be focused on. And they're really just focused on the next batch of veterans getting out. But 2, 3, 4 years down the road, when you feel like you've tried everything, you've gotten the job, you hate the job, you can't feel like you just don't have a fit. That's what I think where the biggest need is, and that's where we really try to position ourselves. It's not necessarily transitioning, but really focused on long-term development.
We lost your volume, Paul.
Pardon? Lost my
We
volume?
lost your volume. Yep, you're back now. We couldn't hear your question.
Okay, I love this Riverside. Zack keeps getting louder and softer, and then I go away. Back to you, Zack. You've got a line that says no graduations. That's a deliberate choice. Why does graduation matter as a concept, and why do you build a system that refuses to issue the graduation?
Yeah, and no graduation doesn't mean no milestones, right? There are metrics and milestones we track, but where a lot of the transition organizations focus, it's a 3-month cohort. You get in with 15 or 20 people, and then after that 3 months, you get all this information, and then it's kind of one of those, here you go out and implement and do all those things. And I think a realization of adult learners, and you think a lot of the veterans we're focused on are 35, 45, 55 years old, and at the end of the day, they have a lot more to give. But I think too often we forget that piece of it. Is really doubling down on what's the value they can bring into it, and how do we optimize that.
I'm going to pivot a little bit here, and I started asking you things about ATLVets and et cetera. You provided some of the information about you personally, but I'm going to step back a little bit and say, who is Zack Knight? What is Zack desire in life? What is your mission and goal? And why are you sitting on a podcast talking about veterans, potentially to other veterans? Who is Zack Knight?
Man, so born and raised in Atlanta, and for anybody listening that's an Atlanta person, I'm a Grady baby, which means I'm really from Atlanta. There's some other people that claim Atlanta, but it's not true. But no, it's interesting growing up. I knew I never wanted to be stuck behind a desk. So, entering the police force and the military is really kind of just that whole perspective I had. I wanted to be active. I wanted to be able to contribute to society as a whole. My dad's a Vietnam veteran. So for a millennial, I was raised by that Vietnam mindset of you got to wake up and work every day. And the hard part for me was when I got out, I looked for all these resources. I looked for an organization that could help me with entrepreneurship, not just the LLC, or could help find a job and not just an entry-level position. After the 15 years for myself, I was told I could get a job at a warehouse, and that'd probably be the best I could look for after I'd already created some amazing organizations myself. So I think that's kind of the biggest focus of what I'm doing now is really just enjoying, what's that phrase? You never work a day in your life when you love what you're doing. And that's kind of the piece. I don't want to see another veteran go through everything I went through. And then how do we build the family core back? I think society as a whole has really struggled with the family core. The veteran community is very, very fractured when it comes to families. So we really bring in the parents, the siblings, the kids of the veteran, where how do we bring this family core back together where we all not only work together, but do life together. And that's a very big focus of everything we get on.
I've shared with Blair and I may have shared with you, I had gone to the Austin area and was in a church, the Bible study group there near Fort Hood. And probably half the members in that Bible study group either were veterans or were married to veterans. And about halfway in, I started talking about what Blair was doing with veterans here in Dallas. And one of the guys, a very astute guy, up to that time, he'd been involved very much in interaction with all the discussions. And he said, you know, I would love to have that here because it took me 10 years to finally adjust that it was okay where I was and my life was okay where it was and accept that I could be part of society again instead of a military group or in the deep area that I was in my mind. So that struck a nerve with me and has stayed with me and me desiring to see Blair take that program out. And then I'm ecstatic that ALTVets is bringing that in under your tiers that you have. So pivoting again, walk us through the 4 current tiers of the Leadership Institute, and then we can finish up on the 5th tier that's coming.
Absolutely. And the 4 things that we started with were the 4 things that I felt that veterans struggle with. And they're very particular in their order and kind of how we talk about them. The first pillar is marketing, and it's not necessarily social media marketing and getting a good Instagram post up. It's more about how do you talk about yourself, your journey, how do you talk about your story, whether it's in a job interview, on a podcast, or on a stage, how are you articulating your experiences? Then we do mindset, not mental health. We're mental health adjacent and a lot of what we focus on. But mindset, what's the new mindset you need to succeed in civilian space? Movement is another big one where we focus on mental and physical wellness and that component. And then money management. I don't know how many folks know a veteran that at 22 years old bought an $80,000 truck and financed it at 27%. But veterans kind of struggle with the money management portion. So those were our original 4 pillars, and then most recently expanding into that 5th.
You know, just how do you take these tiers and build them out? What is the senior track leader that you're trying to work with and pull through this?
Absolutely. So one of our first core program, and it really focuses on entrepreneurship. It's our senior leader track. We keep it very small. We have a very intense screening process. Our tagline as an organization is we're a handout, not a handout. So recognizing that a lot of what we're focusing on is the individual that we're helping and really investing in themselves to learn and grow. But that program is a phenomenal example where we don't necessarily start businesses. But if you're a veteran out there or a veteran family member that has a business and you're ready to grow it and scale it, that's where we come in. Is we really focus on growth plans and a 5-year trajectory, not just a 3-month cohort. And then outside of that, the private equity firm. I know Jonathan Bates and Patriot Growth Capital has already been attached to this a little bit. And the private equity piece is where our entrepreneurs can also choose just to be owner operators of the private equity acquisitions that we have coming through. So really, when we look at entrepreneurship, it's not that beginning. It's literally now what? And now what is our biggest slogan of how we support veterans. Now what do we do? And how do you do it?
And he was talking about Patriot Growth and how that process has been very effective. I understand we're about at our 16th business that we've acquired and put veterans into the business to help them first learn how to run a business. You don't put a veteran in on day one at the top, just like you don't put a new employee that has a lot of skill sets at the top. He's got to learn the business and earn his way to the top. And that's absolutely a wonderful program, but it also gives veterans and additional veterans the capability of working for them. So I love what Jonathan's doing, and we're trying to work with Jonathan to do more of it. So that's a major piece of the process. Why don't you tell us a little bit about AMP, Georgia Association of Manufacturers, and what you guys are doing with them?
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for that, Paul. Our newest program that we've rolled out this year that's pretty robust is our Advanced Manufacturing Pathway. And it goes back into what is that talent management, pipeline management, multi-year process look like. So we essentially created a 101, 201, and 301 program. The 101 is designed for the underemployed or unemployed veteran if you need to learn skills in the manufacturing space, and OSHA certifications, Lean Six certifications. The 201 and 301 are really designed as the supervisor level, manager level. So 3 or 4 years down the road, we can actually have that one person we started with 101 rise into the organization and have that path really set for them, like the military. In the military, every 2 or 3 years, you're up for another promotion, you go to another training, and then you get the promotion and you go on about your next thing. We want to really recreate that with our Veteran Leadership Institute. The manufacturing pathway is the first of our industry-specific pathways that we're creating. And I think it'll really shift the dynamic where here in Georgia, the Georgia Association of Manufacturing has a 63% attrition rate annually for their workforce. The veteran community is about a 70% attrition rate in the first 3 months of their first job. So how do we solve that? And we created that multi-year pipeline management system to essentially support the manufacturing space in that way.
ATLVets as far as a group, but you have 16,000 members that are veterans. Tell us about your membership group and what you do for them.
Yeah, so we actually we added 16,000 in 2025. We just turned 3 years old about 2 weeks ago. June 7th was our 3-year anniversary. So 16,000 is how many we added in 2025 that we served. Total so far in our 3 years, it's at 25,000. Where our goal is just to get those veterans, and some of those numbers are family members as well. Where again, it goes back to how do we bring spouses or parents into what we're doing, knowing that that's the best support system for the veteran. But the engagements all across the country. We're in 12 states. We're doing multiple events every month in Atlanta, Tampa, growing out thanks to everything out with Blair and what you're doing, Paul, out in Dallas. Obviously, about to start building Dallas a lot more. But the real focus is to not be stuck in a geographically locked area. And how do we expand that in veteran cities, not military cities? Dallas is not necessarily a military city. Atlanta is not a military city, but they are veteran cities. So how do we bring awareness to that? And then most recently in April, we actually launched our mobile app. So we have a full asynchronous learning platform that we've built out, and it's accessible via mobile as well. iPhone and any of you Android users out there, it's on the Google Play Store as well. But that's kind of the goal, is how do we reach and grow and scale outside of just here in Atlanta?
Our introductions where we got deep in the weeds for me, you were already there. I just got in there with you, came in from the opportunity of introducing Blair Thomas to you. And, resilience and reflection sits on the ministry pillar. Most leadership programs would not touch that. Why do you?
I think the biggest piece, and it really just goes back to what I've seen in the veteran community. And you think about the U.S. military, it is the most diverse workforce in the entire world. Every background, every religion, every belief is represented somewhere in the military. For us, I think what it really boils down to is the misdiagnosis of PTS or PTSD, where the commonplace with the VA is here's some medication and go about your way. For me, I think the reality is moral injury. And what is the head and the heart? What does that combo actually look at? And where's the break there? And I think that's a big piece of where we want to target not just our mindset, but obviously everything with Blair and beyond the uniform ministries. The spirituality component is a huge aspect of how do you get your head and the heart back in alignment. And some of the things we have to do in the military, morally, we might not agree with, but understanding the bigger vision of us serving, and that's your job. So a lot of what we focus on is that spiritual piece of head-heart combo. How do we actually fix the moral injuries that most people don't see?
Yeah, and why don't you go a little bit into what you're wanting to do to share that and get it launched, not only in the Dallas area where Blair sits, but in other areas of the country, and the plans that you have for ATLVets with the BTUM, and continuing with the other pillars that you have. Let's go forward. Where are we going to be by the end of the year, next year? Where are we in the 3-5 year, that the goals and whatever? Let's go into that a little bit.
Absolutely. Obviously, world domination, that is the biggest key for us. But in reality, and with Blair's addition, to be able to really drive forward with the spiritual component in our fifth pillar ministry, the goal with Blair is, how do you start within a church and get veterans that are already going to church? How do you get them connected across the country? And then broadly, nationally, it's really a focus of how do we reach veterans that are curious about spirituality but might not know the path into that, across wherever they may be, and how do we help find them their homes, if that makes sense, and where they can be in a community of like-minded individuals, veterans and spiritual component. So the 3-5 year marker, what's funny is the 12 states we added by year 2. Year 3 was one of those where my board said, hey, we should probably slow down a bit, and they realized that I was very serious about world domination. But we're looking to really grow and expand it, and really set flagship cities in multiple states here in the next 3 to 5 years. Sooner or later, I've been told I have to go beyond the Mason-Dixon line, and that we have to go into cold states. So eventually, we're going to have to get somewhere where it's not as warm, because we're all across the South, out to the West Coast, and Seattle and DC is about as far north as we've gotten so far.
Well, I understand that. And being in the South, and we kind of have our own thoughts down here of all the stuff. And it's like, I was talking to a company in Seattle, and we're a faith-based company. So somewhere in there, something was said that indicated they were a faith-based. And so that just opened up conversation. Well, he was talking about, we need support up here. Because a lot of the people around here just don't understand, and they've got a philosophy where they don't want to understand. So having somebody come in to pick us up and tell us that it's going to be okay, it's a nice situation. So I, as you're saying, we definitely need to take this plan and go further with it, because it's something that's needed all over the country. So that's why, more recently we got into conversation, and I'll share this, and Tricia can step in if she needs to here. But we're in conversation about, this is a program that is worthwhile for everybody. If the veterans are being able to get their lives together, they're better society contributors. They stay involved in the situation, and many problems that they have, if they can be supported, they go away. So C-Suite Network and ATLVets Beyond the Ministry, we're talking about how can we expand this out across the nation and make it a national program. So that's in the makings here. Tricia, I'm just going to ask you, do you have any thoughts that you'd like to share at this point for where you would see how this could be something for the nation?
Well, first of all, I'm just so honored to even be part of this conversation. It's incredible. And Zach, as you're sharing your experience, I have to say, I had not ever shared. I've shared a number of things related to the veteran community and the mission and vision of C-Suite Network, and how we support people in their success, and the nonsense that I feel veterans are put through in the business world. But you made me think of my grandfather, and when you were talking of PTSD and what it looks like. And my grandfather was in the Second World War, and I was his person. And so everything that was beautiful in him, I had the benefit of. And when I look back now at what he went through alone, it's just so painful, and I learned how to make his coffee with Canadian Club. As probably a 5-year-old, I felt very capable, and I was able to do that. I just thought, it's kind of like putting vanilla syrup in that I put in my coffee. So thank you for your service before and now, and for C-Suite Network. to be aligned and to use this whole platform and ecosystem that we've built to, with humility and a servant's heart, support great leaders. And that's something that I think is so, I feel like that's missed. And obviously I'm not a veteran myself, but the leadership it takes to put your own your own freedom at the service of others is extraordinary. And so yeah, I'm not usually short of words, but I really am truly, on behalf of all of C-Suite Network, honored to be aligned with everybody on this call to put to work all of the ecosystem and platform that we've built to see that success. There's an easy way to do things, and we can talk. I know that has different meaning. uh, there's just like we're aligned on the mission and vision, and here are the things that we've got to work with. And so I'm ecstatic to be on that journey together.
Well, I want to proceed along with that ATLVets does not exist in isolation.
Absolutely
PGC,
not.
C-Suite Network, C-Suite Support, the Georgia Association of Manufacturers, the Metro Atlanta chapter. Walk us through partnership flywheel and where we want to do this same flywheel in all the major cities of the country, Zach, because you're slacking here if you're only in 12 states after 3 years still. Let's get the burner going here and see if we can get you moving a little faster. All right. Talk to me about the flywheel, how this is going to work and how we plug it in.
Yeah, I love it. It's multifaceted. I've learned a lot in the last 3 years. Nonprofit is probably the hardest thing I've done in business by far. It's a unique way to figure out how do you generate revenue without selling, quote unquote, selling anything. But here in Georgia, great example. We have great partnerships with legislators on both sides of the aisle. We really stay apolitical, if you will, but really have great partnerships just really on the legislative side. So a local congressman here certified our entrepreneurship program, and we got a good bit of money from Congress, really validating that. And then it kind of expanded into the Georgia Association of Manufacturing, Georgia Economic Development, and the Metro Atlanta Chamber and their workforce development side vouching for this manufacturing program. And it really started with another Army guy, Patrick Lenz, who's the CEO of Toyo Tires. He vouched for it. He helped us build that program. He vouched for it. He's part of that space, and it just took, that one domino. And now there's Kia, Mitsubishi, and Glock, all based here in Georgia, where we're now starting to work with them to help veterans get into those organizations. Tampa is our second biggest city and growing rapidly. We have 4 events a month down there, and a new partnership with the Bay Area Manufacturing Association. So really looking at where's the gap, what's the issue, and it's no different than in normal business. Where's the gap? What's the deficiency that the partner could be facing? In the manufacturing space, it's retention. Nobody can seem to retain good talent. So how do we be value forward? Create a program where if you sponsor that cohort or you donate to that cohort, you're going to get a very well trained, very well vetted individual. And that trust is really what has gotten us to this point. And I think we can just keep growing it that way and keep filling the needs. How do we help support with some great candidates that are veterans?
Well, how quick are you going to be with the Texas Association of Manufacturers?
I think call Blair on that one. I know he's our guy in Dallas.
Well, that's exactly what I'm going to do here in just a few minutes, but I couldn't pass up the opportunity saying, you've been slacking. So, as you said, you served 16,000 veterans and 25,000 overall. What's your 2030 number, and how true does it have to be to land?
Oh man, 2030, 4 years out. So the 10-year plan, I'll hit the 10-year, and this is between Patriot Growth Capital and ATLVets. We want to impact 1 million veteran families by creating $1 million in each of those families. And that's the combined effort, and the beauty of the ecosystem we've created is really change generational trees for veterans and veteran family members. Open the purview, let veterans understand what the possibilities are. very modest upbringing myself here in Atlanta, and it's one of those business ownership wasn't really a thought as far as like an actual business. It's like, yes, you can go start a lawnscaping business, but you're going to be mowing all the lawns. So for me, it was really the perception of there's so much more available to us that just for 15 years I had no idea about. So I think as we continue to grow and scale, that's kind of the exciting part is how do we bring those opportunities, those possibilities, and the opportunity to dream again. I dreamed of being in a uniform. And that was I also dreamed of being the Atlanta Braves closer to be the next John Smoltz. That didn't quite go my way, but then it was the uniform after that. So how do we dream again after I've already fulfilled my life's dream? And, still have another many decades ahead of me to figure that out.
To be part of this, I'm going to ask Blair to share a couple of minutes of how he sees the BTUM being benefited by and being part of, as well as he's stepping in to be your Texas, build it out, get the industries going, get the manufacturing going, etc. So let's, Blair, step in and share where you're going with this.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you, Paul and Zach and Tricia, Sheila. It's a wonderful opportunity. If you look at the state of Texas alone being the largest veteran state in the country with 1.6 million veterans and 100,000 veteran families moving here every year, we have an opportunity to impact lives. But as Zach has explained his experience, my own is when I took the uniform off, my purpose went away with it too, or at least that's what I was told. I didn't fit in. And the only person to talk to me was another veteran. And they understood, they translated, and they helped me translate my skills, my desires, and my direction. And so to me, reaching 16,000 like ATLVet is doing, we can reach just as many when there's such a high density of veterans here and the needs that are here. We're very excited about the opportunity to work, as well as, and I'm sure Tricia is very much aware of this, and Paul, you are too, look who's moving to Texas. Samsung just announced they're moving their headquarters here to Plano. We've got $6.7 billion in factories being built by TI in Sherman, Texas, and manufacturing. We've got excess. It's now Y'all Street, not Wall Street, moving to Texas. I mean, we have opportunities here that far outreach things that we see right now, especially college education, where we don't know what jobs are going to be around when they graduate. They're going to have to go through a trial and learning process. And who's best fit military training to survive and adapt is a veteran. They've gone through so much where it's life dependency. Then they come out into the civilian world. They're ready to move and shake and bake, and they realize they're already moving too fast. They need to adjust. And therefore, a veteran helps them. And that's where we want to get churches involved. That's where we want to get fellow veterans involved to come alongside these. And I think that's what that faith pillar for ATLVets is going to be, as well as helping the brand grow here in Texas. Whether it's in Austin, Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, we're real excited about the opportunity to impact veteran community. And I will share with you one pastor's view of the veteran community. It is the most underserved community in America today's date. So I really like that quote, and I'm going to try to help impact that quote by impacting the veteran community here in Texas, as well as helping Zach in other states. Hope that answers that.
Absolutely. All right, Zach, back to you. What is the one leadership lesson from leading an infantry? Like Blair had shared with me earlier, he led a full group of infantry and managed hundreds of people. And he walked out and a company said, well, you don't have any management experience. And it's like, what? We had to execute on call without and pivot when that execution didn't work. You're telling me I don't know how to manage? But what is the one leadership lesson that the leading infantry that every CEO should steal?
Man, I think the biggest thing is give, and I'll say it censored, give a darn about your people. I think that's the biggest thing on both sides, Patriot Growth and ATLVets, is in the military, there's such a support system back home for the families. When we're deployed, there's something happening back home, and the guys are taken care of. When we're in Afghanistan, the funny, and I say funny, the ironic thing was all of the guys I deployed with, and we had 50 guys. We ended up losing 6 of those 50 in that 9 months. But all of them that I spoke to, none of them were terrified of going over into combat or into war. All of them were terrified of coming home. So how do I, as we lost Will and Joey, we lost about 3 weeks in Afghanistan, how do I keep the other 48 guys motivated? How do I make sure they feel supported, not just in the Middle East, but also back home? And you have to know who they are and how they operate, what motivates them, and really have that very tight-knit understanding. And that's in the corporate world, everything from the janitor to the CEO. Treat everybody with that same level of respect and dignity, and they become your biggest cheerleaders in the future.
Lightning round here. What's the best advice that you would give a veteran in month 3 after the uniform comes off?
Learn how to invest in yourself again.
Okay. And how do you propose that they do that? How do they recognize what they need and do that?
I think it's having the courage to get out of the house is step one. A lot of folks, a lot of vets isolate ourselves and realize we believe nobody else knows what we're going through. Paul, you don't get it because you didn't live my life, quote unquote, right? The reality is a lot of what we struggle with is the humanity of things, right? And understanding there's a lot of relatability between a veteran and non-veteran, the allies, as we call them. So getting out of the house, making sure you're actually understanding and learning again, but having that learning mentality, getting into society and being willing just to learn. If it's been 20 years in the military and you did that exceptionally well, awesome. Now what's the next 20 years of your life going to look like? And get out of the house and go do it. Have that courage.
A CEO who generally wants to hire veterans and keep them?
I would say make sure you're not just veteran friendly, but be veteran ready. Understand what it means to hire a veteran. And a lot of times I hear all the horror stories. Terrible joke. Don't make that joke in the workplace. In the military, we can say whatever we want, essentially, right? So understanding with a veteran what you're getting, you're going to have to polish them up a little bit. But also understand how do you optimize them, and that's our workforce development umbrella is VetOps, Veterans Optimizing Professional Success. And the concept is if you can give a veteran a vision, or in the military it's the commander's intent, go do this, and then get out of the way. That's going to get done. Don't ask questions, mind you. Don't ask questions of how it got done, but it will get done. And if you can understand, that's where a veteran's strength is like getting the job done and making sure you give them that type of clarity in the intent that you want them to accomplish.
Well, the legacy of love hit #1 in mental health. What is the book really about?
Man, yeah, the book I wrote about 3.5 years ago, it was #1 in mental health and philosophy mythology. I was studying ancient leaders at the time, philosophy and stoicism. The biggest piece is the journey I went through. I didn't write it intending, I didn't think anybody would read it. I think that's a commonality of a lot of authors. I wrote it for my soldiers and said, hey, this is the struggle, even though I have the brave face on and I had to be more stoic than as I was leading. Here's what I actually struggled with. So it's honestly the journey of falling in love with myself, potentially for the first time as an adult or the first time ever, and recognizing where are the values, what do I bring into the world? And that's really what that book is. It's a step-by-step process of falling in love with myself all over again, and really setting the baseline of getting that confidence back in the civilian space.
All right. Final question for you. If you could go back and tell yourself one thing on the day that you signed your DD-214, what would it be?
Should have joined the Air Force. Can we let's bleep that. Let's take that out. I can't admit that. No, I'm joking. No, it's funny. We all jest across the branches. For me, it would be don't change anything, because going through the really dark spots and really being in the dark for so long, it was one of those, you start kind of formulating regrets, and you start formulating, man, I shouldn't have joined the military. I should have done this better. And you kind of should all over yourself. Honestly, it would be don't change anything. It's what got me to where I am today. It's helped craft a story that I can tell and hopefully inspire veterans, or worst case, roll up my sleeves and be alongside other veterans in the civilian space, so that they understand there is no going alone. You just have to make sure that that person's right next to you. So don't change anything.
Well, I'm going to say it's been an honor for me to have the opportunity to work with you, Zach, Jonathan, Jeff, and Blair on this team that I highly respect. And I'm looking forward to the opportunity with Tricia to take this out with the same passion and fervor that I have, and I know she will. So I just want to say thank you from that aspect. And now I'm going to open it up for an opportunity for questions and let Tricia kind of wrap us up here. So Sheila, if you have some questions, why don't you jump in here? Not that you know anything about the military.
So, first of all, Zach, thank you for everything you're doing. One of the things that I recognized coming off of active duty was that I was fortunate because I went into the Guard. So I had that bridge. I still had that military connection. But for those who are coming off of active duty, you've had this great career. You are respected. You have earned it. You earn everything you get. And then you walk into a scenario where you don't know where you fit in. Where do you start?
We should not have let Sheila ask questions. That's a good one. No, I think the reality, and this is what I did, and it's a therapeutic component, but it's that exposure you've got to get out of. When I was recovering from my mindset stance, it was really focused on, like, I don't like the sound of car backfires, right? And it's that PTSD aspect. What my therapist had me do is, like, move to Midtown Atlanta and walk around a bunch, and you're going to hear some backfires and realize it's not Afghanistan and it's not something blowing up, right? I think the first step is really dive in to the civilian space and figure out what it is. Don't say yes immediately. Don't say yes to the first job. Don't say yes to, if you're looking for a spouse, don't say yes to the first woman you start dating, guys, because the transition starts opening up some, more emotional decision making, especially for veterans, where there's not a structure or safety anymore in the uniform. So I think dive in, learn about what's the civilian space and where you can fit in, but be open to those opportunities.
The one thing I would add to that is find a translator. The military and the civilian sector don't always speak the same language. So find someone who has walked that path.
Absolutely. Great point, Sheila.
Should I say? Including the polishing? Okay, Blair, what questions do you have? Got to unmute there.
Trying to get to that button. I'm sorry. I don't have the questions I have is, what does Tricia or yourself, Paul, anyone that is not a veteran, want to see out of the veteran community that you see a resource or you see a benefit or you see a concern? What would be those things from the business side that are challenges to overcome? Because how can we help veterans meet those goals or their expectations if we're not understanding what that focus is or what that understanding is? Because I think this is really an education process. So if I could understand the business side, what are they seeing?
Well, I would say in a general comment, and I'll start with that the first thing I see is a person. Here's a human being that I've met for whatever reason, whatever situation I've met. And if I'm a compassionate individual and care about other people, then I should pay attention to that. I should listen. I should ask. I should engage. Now, past that, understanding that a veteran is a very disciplined person. He can be disciplined good or bad, but the reality is he's disciplined. Yeah. And as Zach said earlier, with the proper clarity and proper guidance, you can point that machine, and it is a veteran becomes a machine. He's going to get the job done. So if you point him, train him correctly, he can be some of the best employees that one of the best employees you can have. When I was in the position of hiring a lot of people, I had two major things that I would do. I'd always hire a veteran over a non-veteran, and I'd hire a veteran that was from the Midwest over anybody that came in. Midwest had people that had work ethics. The military had people that were work ethics. So I would hire either one. If I had a Midwest, I'd hire him over a non. If I had a military, over a non. If I had a military Midwest, I'd hire him over anybody else I talked to. And because I thought this person is going to get the job done. Now, that's a business leader. From my standpoint, I also had to start that from being a people leader and not necessarily someone that is just looking for a body to fill a job. I want to get to hire a person, you want the job done. So from a business owner, and while I am not a veteran, I am a patriot. We had three of my wife's brothers were in the military. So we have dealt with that. Our son was in the military, and Zach, it was the Air Force. Okay. But he was in the Air Force, and he got a Congressional Medal of Honor for going in behind the lines in Afghanistan to pick up wounded people. So, I mean, you know, I have that background, so I'm very sensitive to that. Now, how do we take our knowledge, transform that knowledge to other CEOs to where we can help CEOs understand the quality that they have the opportunity for? But right now, the two of you are on the front line, getting those veterans to the point to where they can redirect that quality. First, getting through not being one of the 22 of the day. They've got to get away from being in that mindset or in the depths of hell, pure and simple. So your job that you're accomplishing and why we're on this podcast today is to bring forward your job, and then hopefully pulling all of this together into the C-Suite network to where we have an opportunity to take this much further, much faster, so that Zach doesn't sit on his keister and just stay at 12 states here. That's our job now, is to get it out and get it organized as we can. But I go with full faith that Zach, given the opportunity, will get the states done and get the program in because of that same military mindset. This is the goal that we're going to accomplish, and we're going to get it done. So now how do we get it done? That's kind of my wrap of trying to come around on your question, why I have interest, why I have passion about it. Because they are underserved. And if I'm in a position to help serve in that aspect, I'm going to. So with that, Tricia, I'm going to turn it back to you and let you, express your thoughts on this and close.
Paul, I'm not going to be as kind as you are. I really am not. I think it's disgusting, disgraceful. Zach, you used the word moral injury. I think it's a moral injury to disrespect, patronize, and not support the leadership that our military brings to the table. So my whole thing, and I think this is something where C-Suite can really provide support and great partnership and leadership, is that is unacceptable. And Blair, Paul, Sheila all know, my story of sitting around a table with everybody out do-gooding each other on what they do for veterans. And I don't think any one of them actually asked the veteran what they wanted. So, it's something where great business leaders understand the power of somebody who's on mission, who wants to deliver something of real value, who wants to see people succeed. And that, to me, I'd hire that person over any other person any day. And so to me, I think we have to put a stake in the ground. We've got a lot of tool sets to work with. and really provide that opportunity for seeing what great leadership is. And Zach, I love what you shared about you have to have the financial model. It's not just enough to want to do good. We have to have a financial model that supports it. So for what we're doing together, what we're laying out and how we're mapping what this can look like, to me, that creates a sustainability, but also the stake in the ground. That is unacceptable. And every great business leader knows it. And the others, well, not where you want to be. And, Rebecca Garnes is here on the call. She's one of the leaders on my team. And, one team, one win. We are all about how we change the world and how we support great business leaders in their success. And I see this as a very important part of it. So again, thank you. And thank you, Paul, Sheila, Blair. This is a mission that matters. And I'm very, very proud and honored to be part of it. And thank you. Thank you.
All right, Zach.
Now, Paul, did you want me to wrap? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead and wrap. We're
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, so needless to say, this is something where it's hard not to feel the emotion of the importance of this topic and also what we're going to be able to do. And I know that my role is the promise of being able to elevate and support great leadership. So thank you for your incredible leadership, Zach. We have a lot of different things happening in C-Suite. So please check out csuitenetwork.com and our events, our upcoming events. Of course, we have Dallas Fort Worth is always the third Wednesday of the month, but I should have separated that. Dallas is the third Wednesday of the month. September 15th, we're having our first Fort Worth executive reception of C-Suite Network, and we're going to have the mayor out for that. So it's going to be exciting, and I hope anybody that's in that area or coming to the area can join us. We also have Celebrates on the second and fourth Friday of the month, and that's just a time where we raise a glass of whatever you'd like, and we celebrate the great things that are happening, and we're also the shoulder for the weeks that are a little rougher than others. And then also on Thursday, June 25th at 1:00 Eastern, I'm going to be interviewing Arjun Sen, who's the president and CEO of Mango Zen, and he is absolutely extraordinary. And you'll find out why if you get registered and come and join us for that conversation. So again, thank you, Paul. Another incredible discussion of C-Suite Support Council.
All right. Thank you, Tricia. I appreciate that. And I will close with one last question to Zach. What is the one message you would want the world to know about ATLVets and your plan?
Watch out for world domination. No, it's we're truly growing, and it's a grassroots effort. If you haven't heard of us yet, reach out. Our biggest thing is trying to find great partners in local communities, and how do we bring that national microscope to the local community you're in. So if you know that or a veteran family member, send them our way. We'd love to grow alongside everybody.
All right. Well, we thank you guys. Zach, thank you for joining today. I appreciate that. Blair, thank you for joining in for the Beyond the Uniform Ministry. And Sheila, certainly always are a blessing to any of our podcasts. So I appreciate that too.